Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning of us. First and foremost, all praise and gratitude to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for His blessing and grace that have allowed us together this place today. May peace and blessing be upon our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his family, his companion, and all who follow his path and until the end of time. The Honorable Professor Dr. Haji Nafan Tariqan MU, as lecturer of this subject, thank you so much for the time and opportunity you have graciously given me to present my research proposal. Your guidance and mentorship throughout this academic journey have been truly invaluable, and I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ahmad Fahmi Idris. My student identification number is 34. I'm a student of English Education Department, Faculty of Education and Teacher Training at State Islamic University Sultan Maulana Hasanuddin Banten. Today, I have the honor of presenting my research proposal, and I hope that this presentation will provide meaningful insight and constructive discussion for all of us here. Okay, for the title is the effect of think, pair, share strategy towards student speaking skill, a quasi-experimental research at class 10 senior high school. Speaking is widely recognized as the most challenging yet most essential skill in English as a foreign language, or EFL education. In the era of globalization, communicative competency in English has become increasingly important not only in academic setting but also in professional and social context. However, based on observation and finding from existing literature, many students at the senior high school level setting struggle significantly with speaking. They hesitate, lack vocabulary, experience pronunciation difficulties, and most notably, they are often unwilling or even afraid to speak in class. The urgency of this research lies in the fact that conventional teacher-centered approach continue to dominate most Indonesian EFL classroom. In this setting, students spend most of their time listening rather than producing spoken language, which means they are missing out on the very practice they need most. To address this, I choose to investigate the think, pair, share strategy, a structured cooperative learning technique that effectively engage our students in oral production through peer interaction. My goal is to provide empirical evidence that this strategy can significantly improve student speaking skill at the senior high school level in Indonesia. Let me now walk you through the background of this study. Speaking is considered the most complex of the four language skills because it requires the simulation integration of vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, fluency, and comprehension, all in real time without the opportunity to revise what has already been said. This makes it the most anxiety-provoking skill for many EFL learners. In the Indonesian EFL context, students face several recurring challenges. The dominance of teacher-centered instructional leads students with minimal opportunities for meaningful oral practice. This in turn leads to the development of speaking anxiety, a feeling of tension and apprehension that cause many students to avoid oral practice altogether. In response to this challenge, research and educators have increasingly advocated for cooperative learning strategies, which shift the classroom dynamic from teacher-centered to learner-centered interaction. Among the many cooperative learning techniques available, Think Pair originally developed by Frank Lim stand out from its structural simplicity, flexibility, and strong empirical support. Several studies have already confirmed the positive effect of TPS on EFL speaking skills, including research by POD in Vietnam, Purnamasari in Jakarta, and Anissa et al. In East Java. However, gaps remain. Most studies have been conducted at the university level or outside Indonesia, and few have used religious quasi-experimental design or examined specific speaking subcomponent. This study aims to fill that gap. First is research objective to examine whether there is a significant difference in speaking skill between class 10 or class 8 students who are taught using the Think Pair strategy and thus who receive conventional instruction. Second is to measure the effectiveness of Think Pair strategy in improving students' speaking skill through the calculation of pre-test and post-test score. And third is to identify which specific speaking subcomponent, namely fluency, vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, and comprehension, saw the most significant improvement following the TPS intervention. So for the research question, first is there a significant difference in speaking skill between class X or class 10 students taught using the Think Pair strategy and thus taught using conventional method. The second is how effective is Think Pair strategy in improving students' speaking skill as measured by the comparison of pre-test and post-test scores. The third is which specific speaking subcomponent influence vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation or comprehension show the most significant improvement following the application of the Think Pair strategy. These three questions will be answered through quantitative data points collected from speaking tests administered to both the experiment and control group before and after the intervention. Okay, next is literature review. Speaking is defined as an interactive dynamic process in which participants construct meaning through spoken language within specific social and situational context. The most many skill because errors are immediately visible and cannot easily be revised. In this study, speaking skill is assessed across 5 key components. First is fluency, second is vocabulary, the third is grammar, fourth is pronunciation, and the last is comprehension. All evaluated using as a validated analytic rubric on a 1 until 5 scale. Next is the Think Pair strategy as a structured cooperative learning technique that proceeds through 3 sequential paths. In the Think Pair, First, students are given 3 until 5 minutes to individually reflect on a speaking prompt posed by the teacher. This individual thinking time allows EFL learners to plan their language before they are required to speak. Okay, next is the pair test. Students turn to a partner and discuss their ideas for approximately 5 until 7 minutes. This low anxiety, high interaction environment allows learners to rehearse spoken language, recite immediately, peer feedback, and refine their ideas before full class performance. Okay, and the last is the shared pass. Selected pairs present their conclusion to the class, followed by teacher facilitate feedback on both content and language form. Theoretically, DBS is run in social cultural theory, particularly the concept of the zone proximity development or ZPD, which help that learners develop more effectively through scaffolded peer interaction than through individual effort alone. Okay, for research, next is research hypothesis based on the theoretical framework and the finding of previous studies. This research proposed the following hypothesis. There is a significant effect of team pressure strategy, skill of class X or 10 students at the senior high school in Banten, Indonesia, as evidenced by a statistically significant difference in post-test score between the experimental group and the control group. More specifically, I hypothesize that students in the TPS group will demonstrate significantly greater improvements in overall speaking skill as well as in the sub-component of fluency, vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, and comprehension, compared to students receive conventional instruction. Okay, last but not least is research methodology. This study employs a quantitative approach using a quasi-experimental design. Specifically, the non-equivalent control group design two intake class X classes are used. One as the experimental group receiving TPS instruction, and one as the control group receiving conventional instruction. Both groups complete a speaking pre-test before the interventional and speaking post-test after the interventional. Okay, the sample consists of approximately 60 until 70 students, divided into two groups of 30 until 35 each. Participants are selected through purposive sampling based on their active involvement in Class X English during the study semester. This sample size is consistent with a statistical requirement for the valid application of parametric tests. Okay, the primary instrument is a structured speaking test consisting of two tasks, a picture-based speaking task and paired role play or information gap activity. Student speech is audio recorded and scored by two trained actors using a standardized analytic rubric adapted from Brown. Assessing fluency, vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, and comprehension on a 1 until 4 scale. Content validity was established through expert judgment by 2 senior lecturers. Interreliability is measured using child kappa coefficient with a minimum threshold. So the intervention consists of approximately 8 sessions of TPS-based instruction for the experimental group, so each lasting 60 minutes and structured into warm-up 5 minutes. So think past 10 minutes, pen past 20 minutes, share past 50 minutes, and feedback and reflection 10 minutes. The control group received conventional teacher-led instruction through the same period. So for the data analysis, data are analyzed using SPSS version 25 and 0. The analysis include descriptive statistic normality testing using the Shapiro Wilk or Kolmogorov-Smirnov test, homogeneity testing using Leibniz test, and independent sample test to compare post-test score between groups of pairs, sample test to compare pre and post-test score within each group, and comment to quantify effect size. Non-parametric alternative, the man Whitney U and Will Connect Shannon ranks test will be used in non-formality assumption are violated. In summary, this research proposed to investigate the effect of think-person strategy on the speaking skill of class X senior or class 10 senior high school students through a quasi-experimental design. The study is grounded in established theories of cooperative learning and second language acquisition and built upon a solid body of empirical literature. I believe that this research has the potential to make a meaningful contribution, but theoretically by adding to the evidence based on TPS in Indonesian TFL context, and practically by offering English teacher concert accessible and evidence-based strategy for improving their student speaking outcome. I'm fully aware this proposal is still far from perfect, and I sincerely welcome any feedback, suggestion, or critical input from Professor Nafan. And from all of here, your insight will be invaluable to me in helping me refine and strengthen this research. Thank you very much for your kind attention and participants from this presentation. And last, I say wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.